Welcome to Kappa News. I'm your host, Andrew Fallon.
And I'm your co-host, Brian O'Brien.
In the 3 o'clock hour, we'll be discussing the rhetorical devices of different discourse communities, specifically audience and purpose, as well as organization and connection. In a recent study done by Unicorns Love, in the LC...
Hold on, I'm going to let you finish, but earlier today, our ACE correspondent, Cash Neal, conducted an interview with an economics major today at Sacramento State University. He has touched the lives of many. What more can an angel really do?
Can I have one?
No. So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an economics student at Sac State. And can we hurry this up? Please, I'm getting late for a test.
Sorry, we'll make this quick. So, in a scholarly article, please tell us about how the purpose and audience are presented
In my
your
discourse community. Well, the purpose is usually in the abstract or the introduction at the beginning of the paper, and the audience, well, it depends. If the paper and article is written for an economist, it usually is very scientific and it uses a lot of economic theories and other stuff like that. If the article is written for people who are not very well versed in economy and the study of economy, then the article is usually written with not with equations and charts like that. They usually have secondary sources which make it easy for people to understand. All right, I gotta go.
Welcome back.
Well, that was amazing and very fascinating. Hopefully we can get more of that story later next time. Now, Jamar, I have a question for you. You are a big figure in the business and economic field, am I right?
This is correct.
Now, I've always been wondering, in regards to purpose and audience, what are the difference between those two majors?
Well, you see, like the other student at Sac State stated, the purpose in business and economics are quite similar. In fact, we also put the purpose in the abstract as well. Whereas we differ though, is that in the summary of the business, we usually have, places where we sign contracts or when we do proposals.
Very fascinating. Now, I've always been confused about this, but can you clarify this for me? What about the organization and connections are so unique in these two majors, and how are they similar?
Well, you see, in business and economics, we both deal with, financial things. However, the difference in business is we're kind of more focused on the human side of things, So in terms of organization, we do things that would make sense for, other people to understand. So we would do things in chronological order, start from the past and go on to the forward. And then organization-wise, we'll probably give a quick intro, then head to the body, and then wrap it all up in the summary. Whereas economics does the same thing as well.
Fascinating. Well, I wish that I could learn some more, but next up, we have our correspondent, Cash Neal. Thanks, Cash Neal. That was very insightful.
And now, we are truly blessed to be with the man, the legend himself, Prometheus.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the desk.
So, Parmesan.
It's Prometheus.
So in your academic community, a lot of people want to know, what you're talking about. So where would you talk about this purpose?
Well, as in many academic communities, it's basically in the beginning, where our abstract or summary is, and in the title usually give away what the entire article or journal will be about.
That's interesting. Now, Papa John.
It's Prometheus.
Alright. Well, I was wondering, for the organization, how do you organize stuff?
Well, how we organize stuff, as I said in the beginning, we tell our audience, well, what's it about? And then we kind of go into like sources, kind of, where we pull sources and what other people in the field say, and then we just kind of synthesize what everything's about in our opinions.
In your scholarly journals, people want to know who you're talking to. So how would you be able to distinguish the audiences, Peppercini?
It's Prometheus, but our organization is kind of similar. Like we have the introduction, and then we basically just talk about what our opinions and like how everything like comes together, and then we can include it.
Ah. Well, now, in regards to connections, how do you connect basic ideas to each other?
Well, we connect basic ideas through basically how we quote, and then we talk about the quote, and then we synthesize. It's basically like a lot of academic communities, because graphic design is mostly just critique and talking.
Ah, that was very insightful. Thanks, Pepperoni. Well, that was interesting. Now, a word from our sponsors. And we're back.
Hold on. I'm just getting word that we were able to catch up with the student that we interviewed earlier. And here's our correspondent, Ryan, on the scene now.
Thanks, Brian. I ran into an economy student from earlier, and we forgot to ask you, how do you organize and make connections in your essay?
Well, the organization in my discourse community is very simple. We do it by first with an abstract or introduction, which is followed by a body paragraphs, then is finally ended up with summary. The introduction and abstract usually has the purpose and what audience is going to portray to, usually in the introduction and the abstract. The body usually supports the claims that are made in the introduction or the abstract, and the summary finally wraps the whole thing up, and it ends up with reiterating by what is said in the introduction or the abstract. The organization is usually very structural with subheadings and headings clearly pointing out what the author intends to write in the paragraph or the paper.
Interesting. Back to you.
And here comes Brian with more news.
Thank you, Ryan, for that informative segment.
Now, Brian, in the computer science discipline, how do you guys present the purpose and audience in your guys' scholarly articles?
Well, in terms of the purpose, it's usually located in the first page of the article. It's where we summarize and give information to our readers to bring them into what we're talking about. For the audience, it's usually mentioned in the title, because in computer science articles, we use specific keywords such as network, virus, security breaches in our title articles, which kind of hint at we're trying to talk to the computer science majors.
Now, in the way these articles are set up, do you have any specific way you guys do organization and connections?
Yes, we do. For organization, what we do for organization is basically our first 2 pages is about our summary, where we bring in our readers slowly into what we're talking about. For our connections, we usually use diagrams, charts, illustrations, so that we can further our evidence that we have in the article to help the reader understand what we're talking about more.
And for connections?
And for connections, of course, connections. We usually just talk about, like I said earlier, the diagrams, the charts, to piece everything in together to make it flow as much as possible.
All right, it's 4:15, and that about wraps up our English project. Now, one final farewell from our cast.
Remember, it's not about me.
It's about
you.
You and you and you and you and you.